Hi, my name is Rita Martinez, and I'm presenting the semester project part 2, Multidisciplinary Team Involvement and Prosecutorial Decisions in Child Sexual Abuse Cases. So I picked this topic because I would like to be an advocate for children someday. And even though this comes with challenges, because this is a challenging field, I think it could be very rewarding. The Children's Justice Center serves children and families who are experiencing the crisis that comes with the disclosure of a significant physical or sexual abuse of a child. The focus of the Children's Justice Center is first, to reduce the trauma of the child abuse investigation, and second, to help the child feel safe to reveal the truth for the investigation. So basically, the mission is divided into for like the first part is to help the child and the second part is to help the investigation. Social workers' responsibilities at the Children's Justice Center. Amberly is the person I interviewed at the Children's Justice Center, and she's a licensed clinical social worker, and she's also the supervisor at the Children's Justice Center in Provo. Half of the time, she does individual therapy in coordination with the victim advocate, and she also coordinates the Family Justice Center. This is a legal clinic that provides legal services for low-income individuals and victims of a crime. She makes sure that agencies show up and attorneys show up the night this clinic is run, and she also gets the paperwork ready for the clinic. Um, this clinic can have different agencies like Watchdog Behavioral Health, Provo Housing Authority, DCFS. So this is for the families and their children. Ethical behaviors. To keep boundaries, when Amberly gives her personal phone number to the client, she makes it clear that it is only for appointments and that anything different should be talked in person. She reminds this to clients if they forget. She also doesn't respond to messages or emails after clocking out unless it's an emergency, but she mentioned that this doesn't happen very often because she's set her boundaries before, and she also tells her clients that it is the agency's policy to cancel therapy if they don't show up 3 times without announcing without telling her they won't be able to go to therapy. To be a social worker at the Children's Justice Center, you need a bachelor's in social work or a bachelor's in behavioral science. The starting salary could be anything from $30,000 to $40,000 a year, or $24 an hour if working part-time or not by salary. There are 25 locations in Utah, but the ones that coordinate together are the American Fork and the Provo ones. The other the other locations are not connected and they operate different. Amberly has found satisfaction while doing this job because it is rewarding when clients get what they need, and getting what they need means that they could regain hope after what's happened to them. She also enjoys the variety within her job because she is involved with micro, meso, and macro social work. For example, she told me that she does individual therapy some days, but other days she will need to talk to mental health agency, law enforcement, or attorneys, and that could be something more like meso or macro. The Children's Justice Center organizational chart. So there is a director for the Children's Justice Center for the whole county, for Utah County, and that director has an assistant in American Fork. The supervisors in Provo, Amberley is one of them. They are under the jurisdiction of the assistant director in American Fork, and the supervisors themselves are in charge of the two different teams. The nurses from the medical team do examinations to find evidence, and the therapists are in charge of the victims during this process, either to gather evidence to or to help them heal. Applicability to the field of social work. Children advocacy centers. So children advocacy centers were originally created to prevent revictimization and help with prosecution. The first advocacy center was created in 1984, and that was the National Children's Advocacy Center. The reason why children advocacy centers exist or were created, by that time it's because there was a lack of coordination between child protective services and law enforcement, and um, that will make the cases be delayed or just like get lost and not being followed up. There's evidence that uh, child sexual abuse cases need multidisciplinary teams, and what children advocacy centers do is gather different agencies together. This is what the Children's Justice Center does, and these kind of teams need social workers, especially advocacy-oriented and clinical social workers. That's how social work is related to children advocacy centers and the Children's Justice Center itself, because that's an advocacy center. To create the interview questions, I investigated two academic articles. The first one is called Multidisciplinary Team Involvement and Prosecutorial Decisions in Child Sexual Abuse. The first question is, can you describe what happens when a victim of a crime comes to the center? When a victim comes to the center, the case is immediately reported to the Division of Child and Family Services and the police, so they can open a case. Then the Children's Justice Center coordinates with the police and the CFS to conduct an interview with the family at the Children's Justice Center. What are the steps for a forensic interview? First, parents need to talk to the Children's Justice Center staff so they can understand their background and what happened. Then the child comes and can decide who will interview them. This could be either someone from the Children's Justice Center, someone from law enforcement, or someone from the Division of Child and Family Services. Once they pick someone to interview them, they pick a room. Rooms have different colors and decorations and themes, and the reason why they're different rooms is to help the child feel at home, because this is like a home-like facility. Also, the room has a microphone and a camera, so once the child gets into a room with the person who's going to interview them, the rest of the team is observing the interview through a camera and listening through a microphone. And they can communicate as well. They can tell if the person who's interviewing forgets about a question that is important to ask, or makes a mistake. The rest of the team can communicate with them during the interview. What are the next steps when evidence is gathered at the center? After the medical exam samples and pictures are taken, they're sent to law enforcement, and the medical team can testify in court if needed. Forensic interviewers can testify as well, since interview records can be used for subpoena. How do you coordinate with Child Protective Services? Well, as Amberly said before, there is a multidisciplinary team that includes Child Protective Services, and they have trainings once a month. The Children's Justice Center multidisciplinary team is conformed by the Division of Child and Family Services, law enforcement with their detectives, county attorneys, juvenile services, and of course the Children's Justice Center. Something important to mention is that during these training sessions that happen once a month, the multidisciplinary team tries to solve different case studies together, and that's how they communicate, that's how they coordinate, and that's how they learn. Who do you stay in touch with when a case is reported? Someone someone in the center, their job is to stay in touch with law enforcement and the family, and because more information can be found during therapy, the therapists are in touch with the victim advocate as well to pass along information. But Amberly mentioned that it's not the Children's Justice Center's job um, to help with prosecution, but just to connect the victim to law enforcement and pass along the information and evidence. This article says that cases with joint investigations have more substantiation. I asked Amberly if she found this to be true and why. She said that this is true because when you're working on a team, there are multiple eyes and different angles, points of view to look at a situation and while gathering information. Information sometimes can also get lost in the cracks, so it is the team's job to make sure that nothing is missing. If one person as a human being commits a mistake and misses something, another person can help and get that information. The second article I investigated is called Evidence for the Efficacy of the Child Advocacy Center Model. According to this article, repetitive interviews may lead to children to relive their experiences and allow more opportunities for perpetrators to influence children. How do you avoid this? Well, Emily mentioned that all interviews happen the same day at the same time, so the whole multidisciplinary team should be there to not do multiple interviews. Also, perpetrators are not allowed at the Children's Justice Center, and that's where the interviews happen. The article says that lack of communication between agencies is not uncommon and can cause loss of essential information for the case. How do you avoid this? As Amberly mentioned before, there are multiple trainings. Everyone is trained the same way in those trainings, or even if they're trained separately, sometimes everyone gets the same information. And sometimes interviews can happen out of they try to do interviews at the same time at the same place, but sometimes interviews happen out of the Children's Justice Center. They try to avoid this, but it happens. So if an interview happens, for example, at school, the Children's Justice Center will contact the parents and other agencies to gather at the same place and do another interview. This is important because parents could miss some resources that they could have had at the Children's Justice Center if they do an interview at a school or another setting. What do you do when a medical examination is not possible and evidence is not found during interviews? Emily said that this can happen sometimes. So basically, unless there is a disclosure or evidence, there's not much to do, unfortunately. Something they can do if this happens, is an extended interview or extended interviews. So if the child is not disclosing or is too young, the forensic interviewer breaks the interview into 5 sessions to give more time to find out. If this doesn't work, it's also just suggested to go into therapy, and maybe during therapy sessions that will come out. And ultimately, if none of this works, the staff of the Children's Justice Center teaches kids about body safety and give them skills if they cannot be removed from the house where the abuse is happening. Concluding thoughts. So after doing this interview, I found out that social workers in this field can end up having vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma can be described as a negative response to other other people's experiences, like in this case would be child sexual abuse. So this can affect like physically or psychologically, and yeah, that's a big impact on people that work with children that are victims of a crime. But also, I found out that if social workers separate professional life from personal life, that that could be less common to have. However, this is a very rewarding job, and it is very important for the victims to have advocates because that will impact the rest of their lives, and you can help them get out of a very difficult situation. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.